Hi, everyone. We have Mike here. I'll let Mike introduce himself here in a second. But I wanted to bring Mike on as a CloseBot user that's had some big wins and also some times where he's found things that we can improve. And we'll dive into that on this case study. Mike, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So I've done a lot of stuff over the years, done SEO, just so much like in the web design space. So I'm definitely not a stranger to technology and, setting up automations and AI. And of course, everyone's all into that right now. But, you know, so I'm definitely familiar with all that stuff. So I've used, several different platforms. Currently, me and my wife, we actually own a real estate media company. And I've had GHL for forever to, obviously run my business. And I've had clients just on the SEO space that we do that stuff for, so that I've kind of kept
So
over
are
the
they real
years.
estate specific?
No, more in other niches. Like I have one that's a law firm and stuff like that. So just
Okay.
stuff that was in the past. So lately, as we continue to grow, my real passion, I like helping local businesses. It's just that's my passion. So as we grow our real estate media company, we're not pivoting definitely, but we're going to be basically helping local businesses out because that, again, I think it just goes back to what fills your cup in life. And not to say that your real estate media does. And my wife is the one that does all the media on site and stuff like that. I just run the operations piece of it. So my passion has always been just helping small businesses. So we kind of branched off, started another company, as you saw in our link, called Locally Branded, just geared towards small business. So, my first step, starting out with GoHighLevel, because right now, it was all geared towards just internally running what we do now and with the real estate media business. So kind of started off with doing that. I've added like, the normal stuff that everyone's doing, like voice AI and conversational AI is obviously a big one for everyone. And so to kind of test it, I kind of approached one of my other clients that I mentioned that I had from the past from the SEO side, and they have a big sales team. They have like a sales team of like I think 4 or 5, right? And not to say they're old school, but again, they rely heavily on phone calls, answering, and either booking on a calendar, their internal calendar, or just helping them right there. So they rely heavily on, again, I don't want to call it old school tactics, but basically
Yeah.
they're not leveraging anything after hours because right, they're only open from I think they take calls. I want to say from 8 to 8. They don't really do much on weekends, and that's kind of where it stops, right? So the CloseBot journey comes from, I would say probably like 6 months ago, I was kind of playing around with GHL's conversational AI for my own business. I think it was right around the time where they started to launch like their version of the flow builder.
Yeah.
So I kind of played around with it for a little bit. And again, as much as I like GHL running my business, there's a lot of stuff I like keeping separate. Like, even when I was doing the voice AI stuff, I use Retail Direct, right? Because at the end of the day, what I've found, again, may not be everyone's experience just because of the fact that sometimes people like just in one platform be easy. But my experience, even though like GHL, for example, uses retail, having a product that's designed for one thing is always going to be way more flexible. They're going to come out with, more features. They're going to be able to support it better. Just that's always been my experience. So a lot of the stuff, for like example, like GHL, I just use for automations, but for anything outside of that, I found that just someone that specializes in something, the platform just works way better and all that. So again, the journey started when I was playing around with GHL's conversational AI. And not to say that it didn't work, but the responses were just, you could tell it was AI. At the end of the day, not that we're trying to hide the fact that it's AI, but you need something that understands context and naturally flows instead of just the generic canned, you can tell when it's like ChatGPT responding. And that leads me to my next thing is whether it be voice AI or now I'm using Claude, I can definitely tell the difference 100% in responses. So something that's like, I think flexible for me is super important because again, I've always found, Claude to be way more naturally responsive than ChatGPT. So, you definitely need a platform that lets you select kind of just, again, it may different opinions for other people, right? So maybe that's just my experience.
Right.
It could be different for other people, just my experience. But I like the fact that I get to choose, the provider that I want to use, right? And that sounds natural for me. So I think, again, some of those things I was hitting kind of walls with GHL's internal one. And another one, and again, I think some of the stuff just seems so small, but I think when you put it all together, it it makes sense, right? Because one feature that I've always liked with CloseBot and is just how it separates messages. So it's not one block of text. Because at the end of because if you really think about it, right, when you're texting someone, no one texts like that, right? And it doesn't matter if it's AI or human, no one's going to read a block of text.
I have such a hard time. And I don't know if it's in the age of AI, it makes it so easy to summarize stuff, but sometimes
Yeah.
even my team members, they're humans. They'll send me a
Mhm.
big block of
Right.
text and I'm like, I can't read this.
Yep.
I need to send it to AI and have it break it up for me. But yeah,
Yep.
it's more
And
digestible.
and just an example on that, right? When I was again when GHL's Flowbearer started coming out and they just released it, and of course they get all excited, right? And you think that stuff's going to progress, and I actually had a conversation with them and said, hey, I really like this feature. Can you? Oh yeah, we're going to come out with it. And then again, here we are, like I think whatever months it is. I don't want to quote because I don't know how many months longer it is, but stuff like that still hasn't been released. So it's like one of those things where again use a platform that's designed because at the end of the day, it's all about booking calls, right? Or booking appointments on a calendar, right? That's all that matters. So you need something that definitely does that and does it really well. So fast forward, I've been playing with CloseBot, started using it heavily for the past client that I have, and then implemented my business. And it's just like literally like in the last month or so, it's just gotten way better. Like how I use it. Because like when I first started exploring it, you still had to build out the complex flows,
Yeah.
and you had like the 100 nodes, and then I discovered the agent node when that first came out, and it's literally like editing a Word doc. And I have like one flow in my thing, one flow.
Yeah.
One
OneNote.
box. Yeah, one node.
That's all I have too.
Yep. And then the other cool thing, just the kind of stuff that, again, what I like about it is you can personalize it for your needs. Like, I've been playing around with, because again, going back to how I'm designing it for maybe businesses I'm going to help is one important feature was drive time, right? I know you can check the distance to qualify, but if I'm building a bot that I want to, because I have this in our media business, like the way it works is when someone books a calendar or books a job with us, it checks distance for appointments. That way we're not going all over town, right? And it's trying to group nearby appointments, right? So, I kind of searched for a fix, or, if someone had a solution. I went on GHL's Facebook group and a couple of people did, but, so what I did was what I really like about CloseBot is you can do custom tools now, right? So I actually built a
Did you make a
custom,
custom tool to
I
like
did.
pull in the appointments and
Yep.
the
It's,
locations?
yeah,
And
it's
then
really cool.
what?
And so that's the cool thing. And literally, it's just one script. And then I registered the tool in CloseBot, and it works perfect. And it works. What the cool thing is, though, it doesn't matter what calendar you use in GHL because CloseBot is passing the address where they want to, the booked appointments address. They're passing that to GHL's calendar, so it kind of works in tandem. So it's really cool. So I guess my point is, it's really neat that you can do whatever you want essentially with CloseBot, right? You can build whatever custom tool you need to achieve something that needs to get done. So it's just something that solved the pain point for me.
Like, cool.
Yeah,
Good on you for doing that. That's a huge value that you can drive.
yeah. And
That's a
again, yeah, so it's just cool stuff you can do with the tool. And I don't know, so like it never gets old. Like going back to that point I was telling you about that has the, the sales team, right? And again, I kept literally for the last like month, I've been pounding him. Hey, I know you don't want to use AI, blah, blah, but again, I guarantee you it's going to work with your team and it's not trying to replace your team, right? Because at the end of the day, because I was listening, because we do like Google LSAs and all that stuff, right? So I can listen to recordings, and I was like, dude, your calls are taking like a minute for people to answer, right? People are gonna hang up. And at the end of the day, you just want people on the calendar, right? And you're doing that anyways. Like, even though he has a team of like four, I was listening to their calls and they're like, hey, everyone, no one's available right now. Can I just put you on we'll basically schedule you, right? So I was like, that's happening anyways. You might as well just keep your sales team working and put them on book calls. That way they're off the phones just answering basic questions and they're focused on just calendar appointments, right? So one of the things we did to kind of, I guess, just like proof that we can show, hey, it's going to work is, we did it after hours. So after 8 p.m., we launched it,
And
and
they
then
weren't doing anything during that time anyway, right?
nope. So they
That
were
was the way
closed.
to be like, hey,
Yep.
nothing's lost. If we ruin these leads, they're leads you weren't going to have anyway.
Right. They're going to move on. So they're going to move on to someone else. So anywhere after 8 p.m., before 8 a.m. on weekends, right? So again, I launched it just one node, simple node, right? Doesn't even qualify. It just says, hey, thank you for calling, or thank you, or actually someone submits. This is actually really cool. So it's not even. I have a live. We used your live chatbot, your live widget. And we also implemented when someone does a form lead, does the webhook, comes in through GHL, and we instantly respond to them like within a minute, right? So that's kind of how we're using it. And it just never gets old to me. Like I'm looking at midnight, I sent him a screenshot the other day, like literally at midnight, booking someone on the calendar, right? And it's so natural looking, and like it doesn't seem like it's AI. It's just like it's perfect, and the cool thing with the node, it like follows those instructions perfect. You don't have there's like I've never had an issue with it not following like the instructions in there. I've noticed if you give it too much instructions in the tools, that's kind of like less is more. I've noticed,
You
but
sound like if that's your experience. That's a testament to your ability to give clear instructions. That matters.
yeah, and like I said, I've definitely noticed less is more on what you put in that document, or else it'll start doing funky stuff. Because again, if you put too much in there, it doesn't know which paragraph to follow. And I think the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen, and again, I've never seen this from a platform, was I think I told you about this, but a lead came in, submitted a form like at midnight, right? And they said basically, "Hey, I'm not ready right now." Basically, because the way my automation works is, "Hey, is now a good time to talk?" And they said, "Oh, not right now, right?" And it was like at midnight they filled out this form, and so they're saying tomorrow will be better, right? And so
Yeah.
I didn't actually look at this conversation, to be honest with you, because I look at them all, but I didn't see this part of it. So then I was just actually backtracking, and then I saw that all of a sudden CloseBot followed up with that lead, and it said like, "Hey, is now a good day?" It said it so like it actually said it very natural. I don't remember what it said, but it said something where regards of like, "Hey, is now a time better?" And the person's like, "I'm in bed right now. It's like 8 p.m." But that was my fault because I didn't do the follow up settings correctly. But it did follow up like 24 hours, so I fixed that. But and then it basically said this message, right? And it said, "Hey, you said follow up today is now better." And she's like, "Oh, I'm in bed right now. Can you follow up tomorrow at 4 p.m.?" Right? So then, yeah. So then this is the coolest part, and this is why it's mind blowing. So within this, I still have it where if a lead is not closed on the calendar within 24 hours, it does send like a web. It basically sends the lead to them to say, "Hey, this lead was previously tempted on AI, right? Follow up with them." So here's where it gets really cool. So basically, their office had 24 hours to close this lead, right? So between that and then, so CloseBot follows up next day at 4 p.m. and actually books them on the calendar, right? So this is 3 days later. And we're the one that booked it. So even though it went to their sales team had the same opportunity to book that appointment, and it never happened. Maybe just because they didn't answer their phone call. It could be, right? But it shows you the power of, again, a lot of people don't want to talk on the phone right now, right? They just want something super quick. And that's why I've noticed that. I'll give you an actual example. I do every once in a while I get people irritated with the voice AI, right? It's going to happen. People don't like it. But, when you're on text, they don't know it's AI, especially if it sounds pretty natural. So they don't get irritated as much. So what I've noticed that when you're through text, you close appointments a lot easier and faster versus just the voice
Great.
AI. That's what I've noticed and I've seen.
And it's going to be cheaper.
Way cheaper, yeah. So I don't know. That was pretty mind blowing to me because again, even their office had a chance to book that lead. And if CloseBot had not followed up with it at that 4 o'clock time, and this is 3 days later, right? And it kept following up like on cue. Like, and I've never seen that. No other platform has that, right? That again, you don't even have like I even had like the canned follow-ups off. Like I didn't have follow-ups on. It was the smart follow-up feature where it literally just understood and did it. Like I didn't have to do anything. So I think by far that's the best feature because, like I said, I mean,
Thank you.
you don't have to rely on so like again, you don't have to rely on me trying to remember to follow up with that person, right? Because I'm gonna forget. I'm busy, and you look at
And
these business owners, they're never gonna do it.
you did have issues. That was specifically over like the past week. Was it stronger over the past week, those issues?
Yeah, I think two things on that, just to be real. So yeah, had issues, but every platform's gonna have issues. The one thing that the cool thing is, I posted it in the community, right? I'm always on your guys' chat support with just talking to them. They probably know me, but
You
at the end of the
probably do.
day, yeah. But the cool thing is, I will say that if anyone's ever tried to message support to whether it be HighLevel, retail, just these bigger platforms, they just at the end of the day, you're gonna get a message back like in 3 days probably, right? And then I don't know, like I just that's how it is. So I have found that, regardless if I had little small stuff here and there, sometimes it's self-inflicted. Like the other day, it was just because I tried to fix something with the prompt and then I took it back out because it made things worse. Sometimes, it is self-inflicted, but your team is like super responsive, and half the time the AI in the chat actually can fix majority of your issues. It's
Yeah,
really
that's a
good.
good job.
But the issue I had was it kept, so when I tried to book an appointment, it would book, and let's say if it was like a Monday, and I had it on Claude, and it was like a Monday, it would book on like Tuesday, right?
Yeah, because the
And
person would say, yeah, let's do
yeah,
Monday.
yep,
And it would miscalculate what the date was for
yes,
Monday and look on the wrong day.
yeah. And it happened to me like 4 or 5 times. Like the first time, like the first 2 times, they're like, oh, just switch to ChatGPT. It's way more reliable. And I'm like, no, can't do that. So I'm like, because it just then the responses are just, you can tell the difference between Claude and ChatGPT in the responses. I tried for one day. I'm not gonna lie, I tried for one day.
You
I
really
had to go,
can't.
yeah. So I posted it in the group. I'm like, and you're like, basically, again, maybe my case was like really self-contained, but I went back on the chat and I was back and forth to developers, and he was like, "Yeah, you've seen it, just not at a large scale." I'm like, "Okay, well maybe it's just me." And then it happened again. And I'm like, "I can't switch to ChatGPT because that's kind of they kept going back and like, unfortunately, like, you just have to go back to ChatGPT." I'm like, "No, I just can't." The responses, my client's like blown away already with how natural this sounds and all that stuff. So yeah, I pinged you back in the thread, and like every time I give them examples from my chats so they can kind of see where it's happening, and then you had a resolution within like a day, and I haven't
Well,
had any issues
my
since. So.
initial, and here's the thing that's different about using a platform that's focused. My initial reaction was, it's too bad that that the AI is just not able to do that. I'm sorry, Mike. And then you're like, is there anything that can be done? And I was like, man, I'm always up for a challenge. What can we do? So without going super into the weeds on how we solved it, you have the API call to gather availability and book appointments. We had to put a wrapper on that function with our own function that takes the extra parameter of day of the week if we have it. And so it gives date and day of the week. And then our initial wrapper function will check to see, is that an actual date for that day of the week? And if it's not, we return back to the AI, hey, you did something weird. That's not the right day. You don't have to say anything to the person, but maybe recheck your math. Here is the closest date to that day of the week. Is that maybe what you're looking for? And then it'll retry with its corrected version. And then if that passes through, we pass it through to the API and book the appointment. So there's a lot of complexity that happens behind the scenes that's not just wrapping over existing functions.
It, I appreciate it because, like I said, it helps because when I went back finally, I was like, damn, because every once in a while I kind of monitor the chats, and like they're like, hey, weren't we supposed to have an appointment? I'm like, oh gosh, that's really embarrassing. Uh, but like, and I understand, like you said, you guys at the end of the day, it's the AI. I get it's gonna make mistakes, so it wasn't about anything about the platform. But again, the cool thing with you guys, and again, this goes back to any platform that specializes in one thing, right? You're not focused on 100 things, and and when 100 things break, obviously you're gonna pick which feature is gonna be the fastest and quickest and most important, right? So I don't, again, that goes back to picking a platform that specializes in one thing, right? And that's why to me it's just so important. Like I said, I do it pretty much for everything now that's important to me, just because of the fact that yeah, it's more convenient to have everything in one platform, 100%, right? But again, when and I need a feature that I can't afford to break, I don't mind obviously picking a platform that specializes in that either. So.
We're here for you. We'll keep working with you. And our support team loves you, by the way. Yes, you're always there, but they love you.
I appreciate it. Anyways, yeah, man.
Okay, any final words that you want to give anyone who's listening? And how can people find you if they have questions about maybe they're a business and they're like, hey, this all sounds great, but I don't want to set it up myself. Can they find you someplace to work with you?
Yeah. I think the easiest way for me is just either send me a message on Messenger. I'm always on there. Just Mike Oddo. They can look up our website. We actually just launched it, locally branded. But yeah, happy to help, or even just give advice. I'm always recommending people to you guys. So like, even if
Thank
someone's
you.
on the fence, just feel free to just message me and say like, "Hey, is this really worth it?" Instead of just using the native features. But yeah,
Thanks, Mike. This was awesome.
yeah, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
For anyone listening, thank you. We'll do more of these, and I will link out to Mike in the blog that'll be with this video too.